Hello, good morning, and everyone. Welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Eitai. I'm your host today, and we will be streaming from Lagos, Nigeria to West Africa to Africa and the entire world on the Good Morning Education Show. You can catch us Mondays to Fridays, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., Saturdays on the weekend special, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and of course on Sunday, still on the weekend special, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. On the Good Morning Education Show, we have issues, topical issues, conversations, thoughts, concerns, and of course, matters that evolve within and around the world of education. We deliberate on this, we talk about this, we teach on this, we enable on this so that ultimately we can have a better society, a better sector, a better sphere, and of course, greater industries. And we have analysts who join us from time to time and they share their thoughts, their expertise on the subject matter of the day. And of course, we will also be having that same scenario today. Today, we'll start with the headline news. So of course, we would like to encourage you to send in your comments, send in your contributions. If you have a question, please do not hesitate to tell us what the questions are. We'll try to treat them on the show. And of course, we also expect that you have how do I put it now? If you're a first time caller or if you're a first timer, permit me to say that we'd like you to tell us your name, tell us your location, and everyone tell us your name, tell us your location, so we recognize you and also ring the bell of blessing to you. So that's that. We're going to get started now. And once again, I'd like to thank you for joining and also remind you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yes, Rotimi Eitire on YouTube. Please do subscribe to the channel, share the videos, like the videos, tell others that the Good Morning Education Show is around and is here. Thank you so much. And we're going to be starting with the first headline on the show today. And the first headline is coming from a university, um, and this has to do with Uniben. Uniben is in Benin, and that's a situation that's happening there. Uniben reacts as senior lecturer allegedly rapes 400 level students. I'm sure if you've been following the news for a while now, you realize that the university and tertiary institutions have pretty much been in the news, especially all summer. We've had issues of investigations, we've had issues of dismissal, we've had issues of suspensions, we've had issues of rustication, we've had issues of strike, and now back again we're having the issue of alleged rape. You know, and this is coming from the Daily Post. By Fikayo Olowolagba. And the University of Benin, also known as Uniben, the management has reacted to rape allegations against one of its lecturers, Dr. Steve Ekundayo. In a statement issued by its spokesperson, Dr. Benedicta Ehanire, on Thursday in Benin, the university referred cases of alleged rape and unlawful detention against Dr. Steve Ekudayo to the police station for investigation. The decision was taken following the gravity of allegations and the legal issues involved. The news agency of Nigeria, NAN, reports that Ekundayo, a senior lecturer in the Department of English and Literature, allegedly raped a 400 level student in his office on Tuesday and subsequently locked her up for several hours. The police, however, reportedly rescued the student following a distress text message the victim sent to a friend. And of course, a high disclosed that management had directed that the lecturer be issued a query and be placed on interdiction pending the conclusion of investigation by the police. And of course, a statement reads in part a security report for preliminary investigation for the students that have been held for rape and detention and unlawful detention of a 400 level female student, Department of English, University of Benin. Considering that the management, however, has swung into action. I don't know, but the issue of rape, especially within the university system, is quite worrisome. It's quite worrisome. I don't know. I don't know how true, and that's why it's considered still allegations pending investigation. But we've heard a lot of this misconduct and crime, because I believe it's a crime within the ivory tower. And I believe that with the necessary aid and help, and of course, intelligence gathering, I believe that the police should be able to get to the base of this matter. And of course, try as much as possible to arrest the situation before it gets ugly. It's already ugly, by the way. Just believe that um, um, whoever is at fault should be brought to book and dealt with decisively. You know, so that's that for that. And so let's take a little bit of a trip to Katsina, and we have another headline that says UNICEF trains Katsina schoolgirls in digital skills. And this is very important. We must recognize that as much as we pursue education routines, as much as we pursue education concerns, we should not go on as if or certain areas in the country that we have a lot of skill gap, a lot of learning deficit, a lot of challenges as it regards um, to development and even spread of development. And I believe that this is something that we must really appreciate and congratulate. Well, would you say congratulate? Yes, I think it's still in order, UNICEF, for putting out that kind of pursuit and approach with consistency. Sometimes it could be very tiresome and tiring, to try as much as possible to pursue change projects, social work, social initiatives. I've seen this happen many times. Personally, I've seen this happen by many stakeholders who sometimes just feel that it's like you're just putting a drop in a big and mighty ocean. But we have to consistently continue doing what we need to do. And by doing so, we're able to boost development within the education space. We're able to make sure that there's what we call advancement. And we're also creating a move that reduces the gap. The social divide is so wide, and by the time we're able to do that, of course, obviously, we're able to get things out. And I really want to congratulate UNICEF. Kudos to UNICEF. Thank you, UNICEF, for this amazing, amazing work. Amazing work. I will say it's an amazing work. And there are many people who are also doing stuff who might not be heroes, quote and unquote, in the news. But I want to use this headline to really encourage people out there who are change agents, who are change makers, who are history makers, not to relent on their efforts, so that we can have a better society, so that we can have a greater society. I really want to say that a bell of blessing to UNICEF from the Good Morning Education Show. Now, very quickly, on to the next headline. And this is talking about knowledge and also a message to school owners. And very quickly, let's look at it. This is saying that learn abroad brings knowledge back home. School owners tell students, I think that it's very important for us to look at some dynamics, and let's even look at it from the angle of course, there are certain things you cannot totally change. There are certain things you cannot totally stop. But if at all, we must recognize that while people pursue knowledge to the far ends of the earth, it's very important to also note that they can also come back with that knowledge, and then it will not totally be a negative outcome of brain drain. It will actually be uh, a boost in the development. KK, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So it's good to be here, as always.
Yes, so we're taking a headline right now, And this is coming
Okay.
from the chairman of Dowen College, Dr.
Okay.
Olumide Phillips. He has advised students to come back to Nigeria after studying and learning abroad. This was during the
Yeah.
valedictory. What's your take on that?
I mean, the reality is that uh, so I don't think so. Is it good for the children to come back? It honestly depends on what they're coming to do. Another thing is, I do know that diaspora intervention in Nigeria is huge, right? So it's not so much coming back and your hands being tied and unable to do anything. It's more of looking into Nigeria and saying, how can, from wherever I am, be it within Nigeria, be it outside Nigeria, how can I keep supporting Nigeria? How can I keep making sure that Nigeria is not a forgotten place? And using those skills, that money, that influence that I have to make Nigeria a better place. So it's great for us to say, come back, come back, come back, but come back to do what? Is a question that we should be asking. And what if I'm more effective from out there? Right. So I think we need to look at it from different angles before we can draw that sort of conclusion.
And ultimately, I think comeback might actually be twisted to give back. You know,
Exactly.
so if you can't come back, please give back. I think that's the first thing we should even talk about. That at least there's a bit of a route they can trace to Nigeria. And as people advance and as the world begins to evolve more and more, and the best we can say is, you know what, just give back, just give back, just give back, because coming back might be a tall order, actually. Okay, so the next headline says educators seek inculcating leadership, problem solving skills in children. Obviously, I know that that's something you want to latch on.
Yeah, I mean, the way we teach and the way we work really should, beyond a shadow of doubt, be giving children the skills. So it's not something that we should even say that we are seeking. So for us to say that we are seeking, for me, it honestly feels like pedagogy is faulty. So we take a look at how we're doing things, right? So if, for example, as a teacher, I come late to my class, I'm already showing that I have bad leadership because I'm not leading myself appropriately. If as a leader there's something wrong with maybe a material I'm supposed to use and I cannot think about what else I need to do, already I don't have problem solving skills. So what am I going to teach the children? So we can only teach what we have or who we are. So we as educators as well need to begin to look into ourselves, look at ourselves and say, what do I need to begin to do differently? Like I said to there was a lady that I was speaking with maybe about a year or two ago, and she was complaining about. I honestly can't even remember what she was complaining about, but she was complaining about something, and I said to her, "Look, uh, you keep. I honestly can't remember, but it had to do with her lesson planning and the fact that sometimes it's so difficult. She has to stop and then start again. I said, when you stop and start, what are you telling the children? You're telling them that perseverance. There's no need to persevere. That's what you have said. You haven't said it with as many words, but what you simply said is once you hit a problem, leave it alone. That's not the case. You don't leave it alone and then go and restart. No, you face it head on and say, how can I fix this? Right? So even in the way that we do things, we need to begin to say to ourselves, how am I making a difference in the way my students think? So we need to again, even within the classroom setting, right? How do we even give the children opportunity to showcase some of these their skills? Are we the teacher taking the lead, loving the sound of our own voices, telling them all they need to do and when and why and how, without even letting them think? So those are things that we need to begin to do. But it's not something that is far-fetched. It's not rocket science. It starts with us just honestly thinking and doing the right things.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that just like you said, you ended by saying doing the right thing. I believe that that should be that guiding force for everyone to realize. We need to get to that point where we have to do the right thing. It's like I don't know if you heard that Cobham song, "Do the Right Thing." Have you have you heard
No,
that
I
song
haven't.
before?
No, no, I haven't.
KK, are you there? You
Yes,
need to
I'm
hear.
here.
You love it. You love that song.
No. Okay.
Yes, you will love that song. I love the lyrics, and it's simple. It's something I believe we should even try to get children to listen to. So
Mm.
let's get to the topic of today. 2 years to change. It seems like there's countdown in the air, you know, and I think that it's either we we bring this statement into our reality. If you can't beat them, join them, but in a positive way. I think as politicians do count down because there's no way we can. They might not be able to say so much because of the sensitivity in the society, but politicians are counting down. Everyone is like getting set for the next general elections. I think that we need to also look at it. 2 years to change. It's also possible to say, is there a countdown for us within the education sector, within the community? What is that 2 years to change, or what should that 2 years to change be? As we are getting to um, elective positions. There are more than 11,000 non-elective positions available, you know. So let's hear from you. 2 years to change. What really even caught your attention when you saw the topic, 2 years to change?
Well, I mean, the first thing that caught my attention was the timeline, because I didn't realize that you really cannot put a change in itself is a process. So when I say 2 years to change, in my head, is it that you have only 2 years to change? What is this thing that you're changing into, changing towards, changing away from? So again, what is the context within which this statement is being used, right? Because you really cannot put it. There's so many moving parts when you think about the concept of change in itself. So just thinking 2 years to change. So in my head, I'm like, but change is a process. You can't really put a timeline to it. So why is Mr. Rotimi putting 2 years to change? But I mean, taking a second look at it, I realized the fact that seeing is believing. So even when we begin to see, for example, the education sector, all these promises that were made on Teachers' Day, if we begin to see some concrete evidence pointing in direction that this movement has started moving towards the north, away from the south. I mean, I'm using that figuratively because south means things are going downhill and north means things are going up. No, so not north and south in Nigeria, figuratively, like I said. Then that means when we begin to see that change, then we know that, incrementally in 2 years, we should see something of significance. So that's how I eventually rationalize the statement in my head. The fact that yes, it's progressive, but can we even start seeing something from today that point us in direction that in 2 years there's so much more that we're looking out for. Back to you, Rotimi.
Yeah, because it's like it just took some words out of my mouth. Because when you talk about this transformation, this change, this promises, this shift, and this improvement, while we know it's a process, it sometimes looks like there's a getaway escape chance for someone to promise something and not be held accountable to either a down payment or some visible element of it. I want us to
Mm.
also think about it that if we say Nigeria can change, um, can it change within our lifetime? Why should we make Nigeria change and create a change that we ourselves will not be recipients of? You know, their ultimate change, their present day change, their situational change, their conditional changes. I think that this is where also education, just like you said, I didn't even look at it from the way you said 2 years to change, like I'm giving you a deadline. And it's possible to even talk about it. Can we even try to experiment and say, what's the deadline for us to stop playing catch up, for example, as a
Yeah,
sector,
yeah.
or better still, as industry level, or better still, as some
Yeah.
of us that are unique? How can we even say that, we want to champion and crusade the end of playing catch up? Because I think catch up education system, catch up education practice is also
Mm.
like, how do I put it, shortchanging the change process. Because before you get to catch up, you understand that the bar is already set again, then you're playing
Somebody's
another catch
moving.
up. What's your
Yes,
take on
somebody
that?
else is moving. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right, Sarutini. And again, it comes to that. I think that was the last headline that we looked at, the one about problem solving and leadership. We on the education sector need to begin to take ownership for our sector. We need to begin to look at it and say, you know what, how do we drive change? How do we truly look into the community and say, what is it that is needed? And how can we, as a sector that should be at the forefront of nation building, actually begin to institute that change, actually begin to, we're right there in the middle of that process. We're right there and saying, no, you know what, we've analyzed the economy. We've seen that this is what is wrong in the economy, and we can meet based on our educational systems. We can tweak our curriculum to align with the needs of the current day Nigeria, such that even university students that are coming out of school already have a mindset that goes into the place of self-leadership, leadership, problem solving. Why? Because we can tweak the curriculum. So like I said, right in the education sector, we need to be a bit quicker in our curriculum interventions. Right now, it's taking us, you know what, since colonial masters left, I don't know if that we've changed that. I know that's a little dramatic,
Good.
but I don't know that we've changed it since they left. So we really do need to begin to say to ourselves. Sorry, but I've been thinking about it. We need for us to actually say we are changing. Then so much, because a lot of people depend on that written curriculum, right? They need that as a guide. It is a guide. So within our sector, we need to be able to, like I said, quicker interventions. We also need to understand what best practice is, or rather good practice. Like I said, there's nothing like best practice, but there's good practice. So what is good practice in and out of the classroom? We need to begin to look at that, right? We need to look at massive stakeholder engagement, especially in the form of parents for our nursery and primary schools. Sometimes, honestly, parents are a problem. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm saying it because it's the truth. Us as parents have a mindset of what we want to do in what we feel is great for our children. But we're not looking at the fact that our children live in a different dispensation than we did. Right? So we, in our minds, some of us as parents are playing catch up. But those parents are living in the forefront of digital innovations, digital transformation. So they know it more than we do, which is why a 2-year-old will take your phone and some apps you didn't even know existed. They will do it, they will lock you out of your phone without you knowing even what to do, right? So we need to be at that place where we are able to very quickly have an R&D department that is functional, not just sitting down and dusting paper, but it's functional and it's taking from the society and saying, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done. And that's the beauty about the Finnish education system, right? Because that's what they do. So it's so relevant. And so even within their school systems, they have set up programs that work in tandem with what the society needs. That's not happening in our education sector. And we need that to begin to happen. And back to you, Rotimi. And welcome, cousin. Congratulations!
I think we'll have names of noisemakers on this show now. But it's good because our noisemakers are also newsmakers. So congratulations.
Is around.
Good morning, everyone.
She's still taking pictures. Right.
Oh my goodness, you guys can make someone's head swell.
So welcome, Titi, and we're talking about 2 years to change. And KK really is bringing those things. It's as if she has them in one bag somewhere. It's just looking as if slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. But you see, I think that I was asked a question, and that question, I was really vibrating in one meeting like that, and I was spitting fire, giving solutions, and then they asked me a question, and I'm going to ask Titi that question. And KK, I'll let you ask you that question. And the question is, if I had 1 month, if I had 1 month as probably maybe the Minister of Education, and all this change, I was planning to effect, or I believe that I can change it if I had 1 month to do whatever. Or better, was it 1 month or 1 day? No, 1 month. It was 1 month. Well, what would I do? So I'm going to ask you, Titi, if you had 1 month to sit in the position or the aim of affairs of the education sphere, what would you do? And you must have changed with all these things you've been talking about for the past, few years and all those things. How would you drive your change?
Oh, to me, that question, that question is a hard one. No, And the reason I say this honestly is that, the cocoa is always implementation. That's always the cocoa. So we can have good plans, well laid plans, but a lot of times where we fail is really the implementation. So when I think of someone that has 1 month, I'm saying, okay, so when you plan the thing 1 month and you jackpot, that thing will come back to me too. Nothing done. But having said that, at least let's start the process. So the process is, have things in place. I think for me, if I had 1 month, is how to ensure that the policy concerning technology being a key part of the child's education starting from primary school will be one of the things that I will push. So, and my idea of technology being a key part is not them just teaching ICT. When you say ICT, people just think you come and tell the child parts of the computer. That's not what I'm talking about. Real valuable things, and exposure to what technology can do, because that's all you just need to do, is always to light the fire. And once you light the fire, you know that it goes on its own. Because once you show children what they can do, then they will go exploring. So for me, that's really, if I had the opportunity, that's just what I would say. Just expose them to technology, and then let's let the fire light on from there.
KK, the same question, over to you.
I mean, as Titi was talking, I was like, 1 month. 1 month. So something Titi said stuck in my brain and is refusing to go away. The problem is not the planning. The problem is not the ideas. The problem is the implementation, right? So what I would do if I had 1 month is I'll identify community champions. And when I say community champions, so I want to believe that maybe I am in Lagos, right? So let's imagine that I'm in Lagos and they're giving me Commissioner of Education in Lagos. So I will identify, we have 6 education districts in Lagos. So in those education districts, they have sub-districts. I will identify the community champions, like I said, in those districts. I will sit down and call them in for a meeting and tell them, each of you, give me 2 things that you wanted to implement in your constituents and why you wanted to implement it. We would have that closed door meeting. And what we will do in that first week is to determine the veracity of those changes they wanted to make, determine the resources that we need to put in place to make those things happen, determine how we can get those resources, especially if it was something that was dependent on maybe another department, and then begin to look at ways that we can maybe internally generate that revenue. Now, I know that I have 1 month, so I don't have a lot of time, to be honest with you. I don't even know why Mr. Rotimi will give us 1 month. Can we get 1 year? So that's something that I would do. And then, but for the second week, what we need to do in the second week is run pilots. Okay, pilots with even one idea, and say, take one school, for example, and run a pilot and see how that's going to work. Again, it doesn't give us a lot of time in terms of sample size analysis or the timing for sample size analysis to get that data that we need. But it begins to show us the possibilities of what would happen. For a lot of people, like Titi just said, once you understand the possibilities, that fire would light up. And I would translate it into money language. A lot of people like money, right? So let's take it into business terms. If we do this, what potentially could be the revenue that we're generating internally from this? Once I can do that in the second week, the third week, what we do is watch the implementation for that pilot. And then we analyze it at the end of the third week. For the fourth week, what I begin to do is cascade the strength and the power of the community champions a little lower, right? Such that they can begin to fast track. So it's almost like circles of transformational leaders within the industry that we currently have in Lagos State and within our education district. That's what I believe that I would do, because I cannot do it myself. So I need to find collaborators to work with. Light the fire inside these collaborators so that they can see what would be different if only they sit down and get the work done. And create an accountability system. I don't know, 1 month, I don't understand. But that's what I would do week by week. Back to you, Rotimi.
Wow, that is so awesome. That's good use of your 1 month, too. Awesome. Honestly.
Don't worry, at the end of the month, we'll buy ice cream and some cookies. Because
that's really the way to go. Because if you identify those people that can be champions, It's like what lighting the fire, and then it goes. So you light the fire, give them what they need to do, identify the people that, because we do have such people.
We
Sometimes when
do.
people use one paintbrush to paint the ministry or paint government, it's really unfair and not objective assessment. They are people in there, spots of people that are passionate, that it's want to really see the change about it. And so it's identifying those people, giving them what they need, so that when you go, they would continue on that. So I think that's awesome. My cousin, you see why my cousin is the child of a professor. Hey, it's not my money.
Anyway, in that 1 month, Titi, you should not allow visitation from family and friends.
He said I will work together.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
Okay. So I think that just like we've said, it took that consciousness of you don't have perpetuity as an advantage in terms of time. Time is the biggest illusion that sometimes change makers fail to realize. Because what Keke has said, right? Because she realizes that we don't have time. Are you getting me? So if we say 2 years to change, pretty much what we are trying to say is that we are racing against time. We want change within a timeline. We want change before Titi's child leaves university or secondary school. We
Yeah.
want change
Yeah.
before we celebrate 20th year anniversary as a school or college. That's very important. And that's what brings us to the issue of institutionalizing change. I think we've so much messed around the word and the concept of change that we've limited change to activations and events. And
Yeah.
because it is not institutionalized, it on its own doesn't become a driving force. It
Yeah.
doesn't propel
Yeah.
other things. It becomes a monument of reference. And I think that's where we're getting these things wrong. I don't know whether it's because we are leaning on what next from outside, or we don't even want to find out what next in terms of what our needs should be. And I want to hear Titi's thoughts on that. Institutionalizing change. How can we get to that point? Because it will help even store up value. Over to you, Titi.
Okay. I think Kika has said one of the key factors of institutionalizing change. But the way change happens is that before change can happen, you need to let people see the reason for the change. So you need people's buy-in. You know how it is where you live somewhere, the place is really down and out. But as long as you're inside it, it's like normal. But when you then go outside and see how it could be, it's different. And so the main thing is trying to kickstart by letting people see the reason to change.
Yeah.
Letting people see the reason to change. That thing has a powerful impact to let them know that this change is possible. Sometimes one of our major issues that we feel that there can't be any change. When you hear people talk about Nigeria, they always say, no, nothing can change. Have you not been on this thing? They'll go and bring you document from 1960 where someone said this was the issue. They say it's now 220 something is the issue. But all the people that I know that have made a change, when you look at people like Nelson Mandela, when you look at people like Gandhi, when you look at even people that started, women's movement, even here in Nigeria, when you look at Ransom, if people had told them nothing could change, we will say that. But each and every one of those people institutes change. Or Conjoy being in one is change, so that next time an African, a Nigerian can be there. So I think
Yes.
that's the first thing. And I think the next is, I'll just repeat what KK said in terms of looking for change agents. So before you even start all the whatever, if you get the change agent, if you get the key influencers, because we will say these people are a cabal, these people are this, the cabal in this place, the cabal in Suburb, the cabal in you know. But the truth is, you need change. You need to go and look for people that are like-minded like you, but they're influencers in their circles. and then make them your, get them to have that change, the mindset, sell them the vision, and then use them. So I agree that's really key. So that instead of, we are always trying to be like bulldozers. But bulldozing is not a sustainable change, and I think that's one of the things that we need to know is not a sustainable change. When you go to let me say oil companies like Shell, where you find them being very security conscious, it's because they can tell you the impact of not being it. So everybody knows that if you have a safety mentality from every little thing you do, when you go out into the field, you have a safety mentality that won't allow you put the lives of everybody on that rig. So it's the same thing. It's for me, it's just the same thing. So we need to, so that my cousin can speak some more words of wisdom.
Please,
So I would say
continue,
that for me, those two things are the things I will start to say institutionalize. One, have how to win the mindset in telling them the vision, showing them what it really is like, that they can see and appreciate for themselves. The second thing, you must get change agents. Don't do that bulldozing method to just say, I've come, this is my idea, get with it or get off the boat. Then over to my kids.
All right.
No, you said it all.
You know the cousin affair today.
Well, take your flowers. Take your flowers. Take your flowers.
It's in the family. It's in the family. We are hot in our family.
We need to have something together. Three of us. We need to do something. I like this fire. I love it.
This, thank God, is 2 years we have to change, not 2 years on this show. It's the oppression of this family matter. All right, so let's talk about shifting economic issues. I still believe that
economic issues.
Yes, I think that it's just like when you talk about the problems of society, especially Nigeria, we are having economic issues. If we also bring education as an answer within 2 years, how can the equation, of course, when you have an equation, it's like saying 1 + 1 is equals to 2, right? If we are to shift economic issues, if the answer is education, or if education will cause the shift in economic issues, how do we play that in 2 years? It's almost like the question I had asked before, but this time around, I'm making that resonance as to this is something that is relatable, almost to the point of to say that what's the business of a school administrator or a primary school owner or a school teacher in this equation and the mix of this? KK, would you like to touch on that?
Oh, I'm trying to wrap my head around the meaning behind the meaning behind that question. If we had 2 years to change, looking at the shifting economic realities, what as a primary school leader or a secondary school leader would you begin to do? Did I get that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Whew. That's honestly is a tough one. So the reality is, for a lot of schools, and again, it kind of boils down to something that we had mentioned on this show, what Titi said, that bulldozer approach. There's also the copycat approach, right? And that's something that we had mentioned on one of the earlier episodes of this show. We honestly need to get out of that space of copycat, all right? Because we all serve different audiences, and our audiences need different things. There's a way Titi would pitch her tech solutions to people in Lagos State urban private sector schools than the way she would pitch it to public urban schools. I mean, there's just a difference with the way she's going to pitch that solution. But that's because she understands the needs of those demographics. She's taking a look at it. So we as school leaders, one thing that I would say is we need to take a look at our demographics and say, you know what do we need in this my sector? So in where I am, for example, in Lekki, Lagos State, what are the needs of the parents in my society? And why? So I'm going to look at economics, in the shifting economics in terms of the buying power. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking at it. There's a stable income, even though everything else seems to be changing, right? So, and even us as school leaders, we're thinking we need to increase fees. But what are we going to do when parents don't seem to be getting an increase on their salaries? The inflation rates seem to be high. Everything has generally increased. So what are we going to do? We need to get to that place where we begin to understand the value of what we carry and how we can communicate that value to the demographics that we have chosen to serve. Okay, that's something that is very important. We also need to begin to look at ourselves and say, I shouldn't be copying what somebody else is doing, because that might not serve my community. If I'm copying what somebody else is doing, and that's not what my people in my catchment area want, they're going to go and seek for it somewhere else. And that's income that is easier for me. Income that is easier in terms of the fact that because they live around where I am located, guess what? I don't need to spend a lot of money on school bus. So I can charge for school bus, but my profitability on school bus might be maximized because I'm not using as much fuel. The wear and tear on the bus is less. So in terms of shifting economies, we need to truly begin to put on our business caps as school leaders and say, you know what? And that's from one section in terms of economic, in terms of school administration, right? We need to think about the money part of it and say, how can we be more profitable, such that even if we need to do a a fees increase, it is such that our community can still absorb it, because that's important. If your community cannot absorb it, then you would lose people. That's important. The second thing I would say is that we need to begin to stand for something. It's so important that we stand for something. And when you stand for something, you would need to understand the fact that it might be a difficult time. So, for example, we sat down in my organization and we did a break-even point yesterday. We said, day before yesterday, we said, what is our break-even point? Yes, we know how many students we have, but based on some things we wanted to put in place, how many do we need to run the school? And we found that point, and we are way above that point, which is great. But how many people know that? Again, that comes to school administration. We need to be able to know these things as school leaders, and you can't get that by copying. And then in terms of learning, right, we need to begin to look at learning from two angles. One, in terms of our three, but I'm not going to talk about parents in this one. I'm going to talk about the children, and I'm going to talk about our staff. If our teams are not positioned in terms of intellectual capacity and mindsets that Titi talked so beautifully about, they cannot position the children where they need to be. And that in itself is something that is a shame, because it will be difficult for them. The children will be getting things that have no relevance to what they're going to do in the sector. And even the messaging from the school is going to be faulty, because that's not what parents want to hear. They're in a, so it's almost like we're in a space where we're not really able to move forward, but we really cannot move backwards either, right? So it's almost like a quagmire. And so how do we get out of that, right? So that's something that I believe we need to begin to look at, right? How can our knowledge move from the place of knowledge? How can our teaching, I beg your pardon, move from the place of knowledge to the place of intelligence? Because intelligence is what allows people to use what they have, not just keeping it and storing it in their head. So those are the ways that I would break into that conversation, Rotimi. I hope I was able to answer the question. Back to you.
Yes, you proved your family and brotherhood capacity, as Titi has said. So, and in parting, I'd like to ask Titi this question, and then she can also use it as a parting shot, which is meaningful change possible in 2 years? If yes, right, can you give us a direct counsel on how to go about it? And the same thing will happen to KK as we wrap up the show.
Is meaningful change possible in 2 years? Yes. The question is, what change do you want? Remember that if we have a population of 1,000 people and you change 100 people, it's still meaningful change. Especially if those 100 people go on to then impact. Imagine if those 100 people only impact one person. So that means 200 people have changed. So meaningful change is possible in 2 years. Yes, I would say that. And so when I say what's the meaningful change that we can do, I think for me, one of the things that is meaningful change that can happen in 2 years is having a program that will do at least a few cohorts. So let me give you an example. When we had in the last government Code Lagos for me was a fantastic initiative. Whether you like it or not, even if only 1,000 people were impacted, those 1,000 people were introduced to coding. So that even when the program ended, they now knew where they could go to. They now knew, oh, you know what, maybe I gotta check Coursera, who did me, you know. So when they see a job opening asking for this thing, then they're like, let me go and brush up. So those people, their lives have been changed. So for me, meaningful change can happen. But I think what needs to happen is the focus area. If you want to do a lot of things in 2 years, then, you know, you might not achieve as much meaningful change. So I would say take one thing, take two things, max, and do meaningful change. But know that that meaningful change, that one area that you do, then has this effect. So let me give, for example, when they change, sort out NEPA, you know, electricity in Nigeria, sister, brother, that's meaningful impact. Because the woman that is grinding pepper, let me just give an example. The woman that is grinding pepper, you know, doesn't need to spend the extra money. So maybe she can invest the extra money in a second machine. If she invests that money in a second machine, then she needs a second person to help her. So she becomes an employer of labor. So that's what I feel. So don't plan to change everything. So let's say, for instance, you decide that you want to impact the teachers, you know, upskill the teachers, so that where one teacher was not impacting too many children in her class, you now have 50 teachers that are changing the lives of the 50 children that they are impacting. So that's 50 times 50 becomes 250. So I strongly believe that, yes, there's meaningful change. And so for me, the change that I want to focus on are the changes that light a fire. Because once you light the fire, it then goes on. So the two things I would say, you know, for me, if I had 2 years to do, one is in terms of teacher empowerment, and then the second is technology. And I keep saying it because once you expose children to technology, you expose them to the internet, expose them to going to look for trainings online, expose them to how to use Zoom, expose them on how to use technology. And I don't mean coding, you know, you'll be amazed. You know, you'll be amazed, and from an early age. So they're not like, oh, you know what, there's an app for it. Let's go and check whether there's an app for it. I want to do speech to text. Let me check, you know, I'm a lazy writer. I don't know how to write. My spelling is not good. Let me go and look for Grammarly. So you find out that exposing them to technology, it lights the fire. So those are the two things that I would want to, even for the teachers. You know, a lot of teachers were very wary of technology. But you know what? They were forced to. They now find that it's a useful tool. Oh. You can use WhatsApp to communicate to plenty people. Just do broadcast, you know, instead of that one-on-one. So it's the same thing about that mindset, that change mindset. When you show them the vision of the future. So I just feel once you're impacting people, the impact is about lighting a fire. You know, I feel that fire goes on, and then they changing one person or two people, you know, and help the fire spread. Thank you.
Thank you very much. KK, over to you.
Drop mic.
cousin.
Okay, over to you.
I don't know what to say with what Titi has just said. I think that honestly just caps it, to be honest. Identify the areas that you need to change. And for me, right, the area of least resistance is where I would typically go for, because that's where I can make the most impact. So find out the area of least resistance. And that's what a river does. That's why you see a river does so much work in such a short time. It identifies the place of least resistance, and it begins to cut into that place, right? Sustained, focused, directed effort, and you see that river will make a change on the landscape. You come back in 2 years and you're like, what happened here? That's the work of a river. Look at the Grand Canyon. What caused it? One tiny river is what has cut that entire place, and that landscape is like that, right? So but again, doing too many things, like Titi said, is just counterproductive. So focus on that one thing. Another thing that I would go for is school leadership and teacher education. Why? If you improve school leadership and improve teacher education, automatically you would see an increase in student achievement rates, because leaders know what to do, teachers know what to do, there's accountability within the system. So ultimately, the students will get what it is that they have paid to get and what they should be getting. The third thing that I would try and do, right, is see how I can bring in private sector intervention. Why do I need, and maybe not just private sector, bring in the workplace interventions. voice, not interventions, voice. If we don't know what they need in the workplace, it's difficult for us to know that what we are putting out makes sense, right? So I will try and change. I will try and bring that in so that we have a real life direct link to what employers need, to what the labor market needs, to what public sector needs. And that way, when students actually come out of the sector, they know where they're going to because they have a big picture of where their relevance lies and they can build on that and just honestly take it in 10,000 different directions. But yes, there can be meaningful change if we look at what do we want to do, why do we want to do it, and how do we start it. So absolutely, I agree with that.
Thank you so much, KK. Thank you, Titi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And of course, as we're about to round off, I'd like to invite everyone for the Lagos Teachers Conference taking place tomorrow, powered by the Covenant Nation and EduAid. Of course, I believe that it's another avenue to also spark the fire, light the fire for change. And yours truly will be speaking on the platform. I believe that it's one good place to really open the minds and empower people, especially our educators. If you're a teacher out there, be a part of the Lagos Teacher Conference. Get to register or follow the instructions. You can visit EduAid on Instagram and of course check them out, and you are able to be a part of this move. And of course, school owners, please inform and inspire your workforce to be a part of this. I believe it's going to be an amazing time, Thank you so much, KK, for the insightful session. I think we have a comment from Olatunde Adebayo. Excellent morning, executive educators. I also think the knowledge of change and change process are very important to make an effective change. Absolutely. Thank you, Olatunde Adebayo. And on that note, we've come to the end of the show today. And of course, we will not leave without our usual payoff. Remember, this is not just mere words. This is an affirmation. This is a confession, and this is our gift to you every day. Are you ready, KK? So we'll count two. At the count of two, we're going to do that. 1, 2. It's always
a great
morning on the Good
on
Morning.
the Good Morning Education Show.
Bye, everyone. Have a great time.
Bye.